extensive lecture on this in the Bronx, in which we try to make it a scholastic lecture about the proper understandings of mixing between genders and how many people, if not most, mistakenly understand this issue. Okay? And we basically said, first and foremost, is all free mixing, every type of free mixing between genders isn't haram, and that's a mistake. But there are certain types and times of mixing between genders, which is haram, which is disliked, which is doubtful, shady, so on and so forth. All right? And the proof for that is the masjid. The women were in the masjid with the Prophet ﷺ. He knew it, he encouraged them. He allowed them to come to the masjid. But there were rules. The best roles for men are those that are the first. And the worst roles for men are those that are the last. And the best roles for women are the last, and the worst roles for them are the first. So this one beautiful hadith, and just think about this now, with regards to the confusion that we have. There's a lot of confusion. He says it's permissible, this mufti says it's haram, you can't do this, etc., etc., etc. This one hadith explains everything. Is that the sheer, listen carefully, the sheer act of man, woman in one place is not absolutely what? Haram. And anyone who says that is what?
Wrong.
Is wrong. And the reckless, irresponsible mixing of genders, absolutely, with no rules, no restrictions, is also
Haram.
He's wrong. That person is what? Mufti. He's wrong. And it's fatwa, whoever he is, he's wrong saying that. All right? So it depends. All right? So we also explained in that lecture that the more the rules are followed, the more safety is used, the more precaution, then the easier it is. So we have one roof, we have one room. The sisters are in the back versus brothers and sisters being sitting. No, because they're mixed in the back. See how we just went wrong just now? If they're in the back, that's also what? Mix. But it's a separated mix. Everyone understand this? So those sisters being in the back versus sisters being sitting row, seat by seat. Brothers being on the right, sisters being on the left versus... Everyone understand this? The sisters that are in attendance are dressed properly. And that's another problem. If my sister doesn't wear the proper hijab, she doesn't wear the proper hijab. In the masjid, in college, on the street, she's not supposed to be dressed like that. Period. End of discussion. She's not allowed to go outside of the house wearing those colors, wearing that fabric, wearing that type of tight overgarment or shirt with perfume and makeup. It's impermissible. So it's impermissible even more when it's versus sisters in the same room, under the same roof, that are dressed properly. Now the meter is moving further from red, closer to, you understand? So the distance, the dress code, and the etiquette. A sister gives you salams, alaikum salam, versus wa alaikum salam, sister. There's a difference. It's a big difference. So the more precaution is used, the easier it is. Understood?
So I guess like talking to like a non-mahram.
Talking is a different issue. That's not the same issue. You can talk to a non-mahram on the phone and not be free mixing. You could be in the same room with a sister and not speak with her. So there's two different rulings.
Should that only be done like out of necessity then?
At the end of the day, it is lawful to speak to someone who isn't a mahram for you as long as it's done respectfully. Whether that is the salams, sister gives you salams, or you gave a sister salams. If someone asked you where to go, if someone asked you for help, or for argument's sake, let's say you're interested in marrying her, and you asked her respectfully, salam alaikum, hey, can I get your wali's number? There's no sin in that, and there's nothing disrespectful about that. Salam alaikum, are you married, sister? Just like that. She may blush, she may giggle, whatever the case may be. She may give you her father's phone number. You know, I'm looking to get married. Well, you know, there's nothing wrong with that. But you have to sit down and have a 5-minute, 10-minute conversation, laughing, smiling, giggling, joking. You know, she starts, you know, biting her finger. That's a different what?
Story.
It's a different story. Wallahu alam. طيب. تفضل أخي.
We refer to the story of the Prophet ﷺ, obviously as our example and the Sahaba following him. We see a lot of the marriages that the Prophet ﷺ had with his wives, all of them obviously. And then, a popular story is Fatima radiallahu anha and Ali radiallahu anha. And we see when we hear these stories of like such, I guess the word is as close you can as to perfect, or such like proper marriages or everything like ideal, right? And so here, like nowadays, I feel like maybe that's not seen as much, and something that maybe as the brothers start to think about getting married, something that you want to kind of represent and be like the Prophet and be like the Sahaba. So how, like, what's maybe some of, like, how can we kind of strive to achieve something like that?
Understood.
Especially with the society and everything around us nowadays.
Understood. Well, I would say that the ideal marriages of the Prophet ﷺ and of the Sahaba, etc., they were fruits and they were products of who they were. So the Prophet ﷺ's happy, harmonious marriage was nothing more than a product of the Prophet himself, his character, how he conducted himself, how he was as a man. Aisha was asked, how was the Prophet ﷺ's behavior? She says his character was the Quran. Courage, truthfulness, honesty, transparency, humility, love, affection, so on and so forth. And that's how he dealt with his wives. When he was home, he would stitch his or restitch his sandals. He would help his wives out with this and with that. في مهنة أهله, في خدمة أهله. Versus a man who says, no, I'm not doing this, you got to do it, you're the woman, blah, 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 blah. It's like a boss at your job. I'm the boss, you're the employee. That's already known. That's already established. So if the boss to have to keep saying it every 5 seconds, it proves something. For someone to constantly put you down every 5 seconds, that proves something. Versus we all know who the boss is, and he doesn't have to wave it around every 2 seconds. And successful businesses, you find the boss, you find the top one, he's in the middle of the kitchen. Is this not the case? At a fast food restaurant, he's helping out the people he's serving. He's making sure that the drive-through line in the morning is running smoothly. And he's not sitting back saying, hey, you guys got to do that. You serve it, you flip the burgers. I'm the boss. So this is one example of prophetic character, which is tawadu', humility. Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah, whether you're single or married, humility. And when you are married, if you have humility with your wife, this is one of the ingredients of marital harmony. Everybody understand this? Sympathy, empathy. And the list goes on. Protection. And obviously, you can't protect someone unless you yourself are strong. So the good akhlaq of the Muslim is going to carry over to the marriage. And unfortunately, the bad akhlaq of me or you or us will translate and carry over into our marriages. I have anger problem. I always get mad. I lose my temper very quickly. So when I'm married, my wife does something, she messes up something, she cooks something, it's too salty, it's overcooked, what I'm going to do? I'm going to get what? Mad. I'm going to get angry. So on and so forth. I'm selfish. A Muslim isn't supposed to be selfish. A Muslim is supposed to be generous. A Muslim is always supposed to have his hand out, giving to people. Enough food for 2 is enough for 3, so on and so forth. So if I'm naturally selfish, when my wife comes, I'm going to be what? Get out of here. This is mine. Go get your own. And that's going to hurt the marriage. So akhlaq, good character, is one of the greatest gifts of Allah. So you ask Allah for good character. Okay, as the hadith states, as you have made me physically beautiful, fahasin khuluqi, to make my character beautiful. So you have to make dua for good character, and you also have to practice it. And I would advise that you strive on perfecting one thing every day or every week. This week, I'm only going to work on my anger, nothing else. I'm going to work on controlling my anger. This week, I'm going to break my selfishness, my laziness, so on and so forth. Marriages, good and bad, successful or unsuccessful, are products of who you are. And most men and women, they bring not only baggage, but all types of damage and trauma from their personal lives into the marriage, whether it's acute trauma or what? Nah, that's the fact, right? In Kansas City, Barakallahu fikum. The Kaiser? Absolutely. Sure? Pastrami or turkey breast? Which one? We got some personal memories. Maybe I'll tell you the story one day, huh? He has a famous kunya. Huh? طيب, خير inshallah. Barakallahu fikum. Anybody else? In the back, Barakallahu fikum.
So let's say like you're naturally selfish. How do you work on that?
As I just mentioned, you ask Allah to take the selfishness away from you. You invoke Allah through His beautiful names and attributes which are appropriate. And from those beautiful names and attributes are Kareem. You ask Allah, Ya Kareem, oh Allah, allow me to be generous. Bless me with generosity. Indeed, you are the most generous, so make me generous. Okay? Allah Azza wa Jalla has many names and attributes that speak on Him giving. And there are many Quranic texts and prophetic hadiths that speak about how Allah continues to give. And that no one is more patient than Allah. And that the Jews said that Allah's hand was clenched. And they were cursed. They were doomed and damned. بَلْ يَدَاهُ مَبْسُوطَتَانِ. Right? So you invoke Allah through those names and attributes for that character, for that good behavior. And of course, you have to try. You have to force yourself. You have to strive. And one of the ways of you overcoming these bad manners is looking at their ugliness. How ugly is it to be selfish and stingy? And where would I be right now if I was selfish and stingy? So I may tell my kids, son, can you do this? Daughter, can you do this? And they may, oh, I don't feel like it, Abby. I'm tired. That's not fair. I don't feel like it. So I say to them, where would you be right now if I didn't feel like working? If I didn't feel like paying rent? If I didn't feel like picking you up? If I didn't feel like giving you lunch money? Where would you be right now? If I just had a lazy streak, a selfish streak, I don't feel like it. Where would you be? So you go higher up the ladder. Where would you be if your father didn't? Where would you be if Allah didn't give you? So how is that fair for you to be selfish when so many people are generous to you? That's you have to feel a little bit of shyness, right? Wallahu a'lam. Fadil akhi.
So a common criticism I have seen online, and usually this is atheists leveling it at people of faith, whether it's Muslims or Christians or Jews or whatever. The idea is that you are only moral out of fear of punishment and in search of reward. We're moral and we're good for the sake of being good. And I'm curious how you would respond to that.
An atheist who say that people of formal or formalized religions are only moral out of fearing or hoping, so on and so forth. Well, first and foremost is, and I mentioned this the other day in my khutbah, is there such thing as an atheist? Is it possible for a human being not to believe in, or to believe in nothing? Is that possible? The human DNA, does it allow a human to just disconnect him from anything and everything above and beyond? Supernatural, paranormal, higher. Is that possible? Or is an atheist actually lying to himself and lying to others? And most atheists and people who do away with formal religions for one reason or another, when you look at their personal lives, you see that there are many things that they worship. Many things they worship, such as money, such as women, sexual desires, such as power, right? Money is my religion. Power is my God. They worship these things, right? So that's first and foremost. And that's not true. I wouldn't agree with that. There has to be some incentive. You're looking for the praise of the people, or you're fearing the dispraise of the people. So oftentimes you have to take it down to the, as we say, the nitty gritty. You're right now you're proclaiming self-righteousness, and that in itself is immoral. Self-righteousness, declaring that you're on a higher, holier ground than the next man. That in itself is what? That's immoral. No one is supposed to do that, to deem himself holier than thou, better than thou. So you're telling me I'm moral for a reason, good or bad, running from something, running to something, and you aren't? So you have to learn how to defeat them with what they say, and not to agree with their different premises and introductions. Wallahu ta'ala alam. Fadal.
What would you say is the best way to either attain humility or keep your intentions clear when doing good work?
Same answer. Ask Allah for it. Take practical steps on a daily basis. Ask Allah for purity of intentions. Seek Allah's refuge from shirk. Seek Allah's refuge from the whisperings of the shaitan. And looking at the worthlessness of this world and the worthlessness of the human being. If you really think about it. One day you're the best, next day you're the worst. How can you work for someone that has that chance of being so vain? You lose a season, you mess up really bad, look how viciously they will trash you and trade you and get rid of you. Is this not the case? So hero today, villain tomorrow, villain today, hero today. How are you going to even deal with somebody like that? Politics, right? So just look at the world around us, right? Saddam Hussein, right? He was a hero. America, Britain, they loved him. They supported him. They funded him. They were behind him. And the moment he disagreed with them, he didn't want to do it this way, he was the cause of all evil in the world. And we have to get rid of him, and we have to. Look at that. Shall we not use our brains? So you can never ever try to impress or work for a human being whose heart is so flippable, unless you're an utter fool. Wallahu alam.
To follow up on that, what if it's like Islamic work? Say it's like you're doing good.
Same.
Same thing.
Muslims are no different. Muslims have heroes and villains. Muslims love a person today and then what? Get rid of them the next day. Muslims are
So
humans.
he's working for Allah instead of working for someone.
Clear.
Okay?
You look at the worthlessness of the human. What can you do for me? In reality, nothing. Unless you have mistakes in your belief concerning the qadr. You believe that this human actually is causing you benefit and harm. Let alone the fact that humans, they're just disloyal creatures, period. All right? So how foolish is it for me to tire myself out, work for the good pleasure of a person, to impress a person, to be loved and to be accepted by a person who can just easily, simply discard me over the smallest, tiny, minuscule argument. That's the point I'm trying to get across. You get what I'm trying to say? Wallahu alam. Fadl Ali. Assalamu alaikum.
I want to ask about an understanding of the verse in the Quran, Surah Nisa, regarding marriage again. The one that goes to the end of the verse, and maybe the next two verses. There was a recent explanation about the verse where it was said that the understanding of this verse has to be understood in recent times, things that have evolved over the past 100 years. For example, men are maintainers and protectors of women. Two reasons are given. One is one excels the other, and there's explanation for this is biology, strength, size, muscle, bones, all of these things, physical protection, because we excel in terms of genders. The second is because of obviously what they provide. And then it was said that because of the Industrial Revolution, no one's doing physical labor like that anymore. We're all sitting back in front of the computer with our jobs. Women have that comparable
Clear.
And the other thing is we're not at least here in the West, North America, this is not like the Middle East and other countries that are at war. So that protection, women don't have that fear of kind of being so they're saying if both of these reasons are taken away.
Understood.
Yes,
I would make dua for whoever said that. Honestly, I would make dua for them. And I would say I strongly disagree with that. And I would say that interpretation is extremely erroneous, extremely wrong from so many different aspects, Islamic and worldly. Not to get too technical, I wouldn't agree with that premise. With the Industrial Revolution, with Uber Eats, there are police, blah, 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 blah. A woman is always a woman, a man is always a man. And it will always be that way. If people are in space, on the moon, in the space station, you can fight it as much as you want. But the natural inside will always be that way. That's just how it is. And the proof for that is when something goes wrong and something happens. How quickly a person will jump back to their fitrah. This one will scream, oh my God, jump, so on and so forth. So I wouldn't agree with that, and I think that's very, very wrong. And it's very interesting that many non-Muslims, they themselves affirm the fallacious nature of thinking that human beings are different because of their world being relatively different. If you being a man of psychology and human behavior, you read many sources. Many non-Muslims realize that this is a very big lie, and it's an extremely dangerous lie. And the human psyche is the same in front of a computer screen, Industrial Revolution, walking behind a mule or a donkey on a farm, it's still the same. And we're lying to ourselves saying that things are different because of technology, right? That's what I would say. Wallahu a'lam. Khair inshallah. From online, question says, MSA from San Diego, California. What should a layman do if they have a question but can't ask a scholar? And of course, no one in his right mind is going to deny how certain things in the world have changed and certain standards of safety and availability. That's a fact. A man can live today, for argument's sake, without a woman. I don't need you to cook. I can cook myself. I can order food, or I can have frozen meals. None of those things existed back in the day. But in reality, for real, you're always going to need and want a woman. A woman is always going to need and want a what? A man. There's nothing like that. So there are police. I have cameras. I have this app. I have this thingy. I have self-defense. It's never ever going to be the same. And people that use these different words and terms, misogyny, chauvinism, feminism, neo-feminism, da 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 da. But for real, deep down inside, we both know that you're not being honest and you're not being upfront. And from that is the danger. I give you the danger of this mindset. The question about free mixing. Now listen. We're not in the deserts or the wastelands. We're not on a farm. We're not, savage barbarian people walking around. Women interact with men. Men interact with women in the workplace, in school. No one is over sexually thinking about this. Any man with a woman, the shaitan is their third. You can't look at a woman. You can't touch a woman, etc., etc., etc. Right or wrong? But then every time you turn around and you look, someone is being accused of he molested me. He raped me. He sexually assaulted me. He made a pass at me. He did this scandal, that scandal. So you're claiming that the men and the women are so professional and civilized and modern, in which there is no sexual attraction. There is nothing that doesn't exist except for what? In those days, before the Industrial Revolution, before men had this, before men had that. But as a wise man once told us, no matter how good your strategy is, one should often or occasionally look at the results. Think about that statement. No matter how beautiful and wonderful your strategy looks and seems to you, every now and then you should look at the W and the L column. He's a great coach. He's a mastermind. He's a tactician. He's a strategist. Look at the wins and the loss column. Every what? Every now and then. So if the world is so modern and the men and women aren't savages, so on and so forth, according to this Quranic tradition, women are evil, women are shaitan, zina, then why are you guys every 5 seconds saying me too? Clearly proving that the natural gravitation and the sexual attraction and the temptation from then now hasn't what? Hasn't changed, and it what? Will not change. You get the point I'm trying to make? Are there certain things different? For sure. A woman traveling today with an airplane, with security, with cameras, isn't like a woman traveling 600 years ago on a isolated road in which there are bandits and brigands and vagabonds and people highway robbers. Things are different. But there's always going to be jackal and sheep. That's how it is. It's always been like that, number what? It'll always be like that. Look at Gaza. UN. All of these fancy names and terms and councils, has that stopped over 20,000 people from dying? Over 50,000 people being wounded and maimed. Has that prevented that? Everything's modern and civil. We're not a war aggressive. That's done nothing. So the aggressive nature of man is still what? The same. And you can mention example after example after example. Wallahu ta'ala. Next question says, question is coming from San Diego, California. What should a layman do if they have a question but can't ask a scholar and need to make a quick decision? Like we just said, things have changed. We don't need the scholars anymore. We have Google, Islam Web, Islam Q&A, right? You can find anything and everything with the snap of the snap of a finger. But is the computer screen the same as a walking, talking, thinking person of knowledge? Yes or no? And it will what? Never be. AI would never be the same as a human being. You understand? So at the end of the day, but at the same time, the balance is that certain things are different. The accessibility to knowledge was nothing like how it was back then. When we read about this scholar and this imam, the opportunity to learn and to seek knowledge was considered to be a great privilege. Most people didn't read back then. Most people had to work on the farm as peasants for 18 hours out of the day. They had time to read, to study things. Now you can work while reading and what? Studying, putting my earpods, listen to it while I'm studying, while I'm working, while I'm cleaning up, while I'm working. So certain things are different and certain things are what? Aren't and are the same. So therefore, what I would do, I would try to research it as best as possible. And if you don't find anything online or you don't trust it, then seek Allah's guidance and try to do that which is best. Use your common sense. Use the basic knowledge of Islam that you have to try your best. And after you're done, and later on you have access to a scholar, to a person of knowledge, you explain to them what you did. And if they say you did well, alhamdulillah, you thank Allah. And if they say, no, you made a mistake, you seek Allah's forgiveness. And you make tawbah, and you try your best to learn. Wallahu ta'ala alam. Khairan inshallah. Next question from online is coming from, and this was AN from DC. What is your opinion on reciting Surah Baqarah on water and splashing it on someone as ruqya? Is it an innovation? Some scholars say yes, some scholars say no. My personal opinion, do it, inshallah. Bismillah. You read on it and you take that water. Many great scholars have done it for many years. It's been known. Scholars of Sunnah. Is that a proof and an evidence? No. We don't believe that just because scholars do a thing is a proof and an evidence. But they're establishing that practice off of other principles and evidences. With regards to the Quran being shifa. And the practices of ruqya. And how certain things are theoretical and others are practical, passed down. وَيُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةِ. And Allah said, and that Ibrahim and Ismail, they made dua for a messenger from the Arabs would be sent to the Arabs to do the following three things. What were those three things that this messenger would do? Allah said what? يَتْلُو عَلَيْهِمْ, verbally teach them, recite to them. And then to teach them the book and the hikmah. And then وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ, and to cleanse them, to purify them. Allah didn't say just to teach them the Quran, just to recite the Quran, but Allah mentioned recite, teach, purify. Proving that scholarship is handed down. There are things which are theoretical that you read and study and you memorize, but there are certain things that you can only learn once again from a walking, talking, living scholar. Now that doesn't mean that anything is okay just because it's handed down, because these scholars say celebrate the Prophet's birthday and they've handed it down. So it is detailed with regards to this issue. All right? Wallahu ta'ala alam. If you feel it's going to benefit you, then you do that. And if you don't want to do that and you just want to recite and read, then that's fine as well. Tafaddal akhi.
So I have heard of a hadith before where it says that it is haram for a Muslim to not have children out of fear of not being able to provide for them, and that Allah will help people, Allah will provide for them. And if that hadith is sahih or accurate, how do we reconcile it with people who they struggle to provide for their children or their children have died of starvation?
Tayyib. Hadith regarding it's haram not to have children or to intentionally avoid having children out of fear of having the ability to provide for them. How do we reconcile between that and between the reality of famine and starvation, so on and so forth? This is found in the Quran and several verses, let alone the practice of the people of Jahiliyyah. They would kill their sons, specifically, or in most cases, or oftentimes, their female children, their daughters, their baby girls, and sometimes the boys as well. Khashyata imlaq, out of fear of poverty, out of fear of shame, out of fear of disgrace. And Allah Azza wa Jalla clearly prohibited this. He prohibited that. He abolished this. وَإِذَا الْمَوْءُودَةُ سُئِلَتْ بِأَيِّ ذَنبٍ قُتِلَتْ. Okay? So that's haram. There's no doubt about that. And it's haram for several reasons. At the end of the day, the Muslim is supposed to make tawakkul. He puts his trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He knows that Allah Azza wa Jalla is the provider, is the sustainer, is He who gives life, and is He who takes that life. And if and when a Muslim dies of starvation, or there's famine in this country, then it isn't specific just to children. There are grown-ups who die of it as well. So therefore, let me commit suicide. Let me just take my life, because eventually I'll what? Die of hunger. Allah won't provide me. And then where does it end and where does it what? Where does it stop? So there has to be a tawakkul. And if and when food does not come to me, then that's what's meant to be for me. That was decreed for me. It's my time. But you don't know that when your child is born. You don't know when your child's time is, when your time is. No one knows that. That's qadr. So killing your children out of fear of poverty is a manifestation of many, many problems in your belief system. With tawakkul, with qadr, and with haste. And that's why Allah Azza wa Jal, as it states in the Hadith Qudsi, the man who kills himself will go to hell. And he would say, Badarani bi nafsihi. He rushed. He hastened. He fought with me for his own self. I'm the giver of life and the taker of life, and he tried to take it into his own hands. And that's a big problem. That's what I would say. And the same applies to protection. The Hadith or the Quran says Allah will protect the human being. The same applies to victory. Allah has promised the believers victory, but we see the believers losing on the battlefield, so on and so forth. Wallahu ta'ala alam. Fadl akhi.
I want to round back to having Quran, because I've seen it recently, Quran written on like potato kind of paper, and people eat it and chew it. What's the ruling of that? Or they dip in water and they drink the water.
Understood.
Ink mixes.
Clear. Well, I've heard of some people actually dying from drinking ink. Becoming very sick. Hear me out now. There are different types of ink, for sure. There's water-based ink, but all ink is in what? People have lost their lives like this.
What about the edible one?
That we're gonna get there. We're gonna get there. Right now, we're talking about the countries that don't have access to edible ink. All right, and which is ink. All right, someone is in a distressed situation and he's looking for anything, and he writes the Ayatul Kursi with ink, like and he becomes very ill and he dies. That's a problem. All right, writing it down, eating it, chewing it, dissolving it, I don't think is the same as reading on it.
Sprinkling it?
I wouldn't write it down and put it in the water. Al-qira'a al-ma'. And that's clearly, once again, that's proven with regards to the light spitting. The Prophet ﷺ in several hadith, he instructed us with regards to the tefil. Spitting on your left side 3 times for that shaitan that comes to you in the salah. So there is a nafathati fil uqad. Allah mentions women who do what? They blow and they spit in knots. So this is just 2 examples here, Quran and Hadith, which affirm the power and the connection of what? Haya. So me reading over the water, lightly spitting over the water, versus writing it down, dipping it, dissolving it. That I wouldn't advise or recommend that at all. Qira'ah al-ma, reading upon the water, blowing upon the water, that's a different story. And there are many texts regarding that. Reading, blowing, and spitting. As I just mentioned, the nafathat. Witches, men or women who do what? They make nafath. They lightly spit when they cast the spell. Proving that there is something there and there's a connection there. Writing it down, eating it, chewing it up, dissolving it, I wouldn't. La. Wallahu alam. However, walakin, if a person of knowledge did that, and he said, this how I was taught, this how I was trained, I have ijaza in this, I saw my shuyukh doing this, and you trust in that, then that's a different story. Wallahu alam.
Another question. I work in the clothing business, and we sell thobes and abayas, right? And a lot of the abayas come with belts nowadays, right? And it was brought to my attention that obviously, women should not be having belts while wearing abayas and stuff like that. So is it okay to sell abayas with belts, considering that some women will ask for belts anyways, or they won't even buy the product? And I had a sheikh tell me, he said that, well, there are people that come into the store. Are there people that come into the store without abayas and trying to buy abayas? So it does increase the modesty to a certain extent.
Understood.
But,
Selling an abaya with a belt. Right. A little bit of detail was needed here. Stay with me, Zach. I would say that a sister who comes into the store with buying an abaya with a belt is much better than her wearing pants and a shirt. Is much better than her wearing nothing. Is much better her wearing an abaya with a belt than wearing some type of flimsy type of dress, type of, tunic shirt thingy. So you have to be realistic. People are of different levels of understanding and of practice. They're levels of believers. So therefore, one who's here isn't like the one who's there. So a sister who's striving and she asks you, what's the best abaya to wear? What's the correct abaya to wear? I want to be upon knowledge and sunnah. Of course, you're going to tell her what? No belt. You shouldn't have anything around your waist, whether it's a loose belt or middle loose belt, tight belt that's showing you your hips, and so on and so forth. That's just against common sense. All right? Anything that is contoured, and this is for anyone listening, any type of overgarment that's contoured is thumbs down. No contour on the woman's body, unless it's something which is uncontrollable. Height, whatever, something you just can't hide. But shoulders, hips, legs, nothing should be contoured and anywhere closely, remotely fitted around a woman's body. But the garment should drape, it should fall, it should hang, breaking her curves as much as possible. And if you have a belt, a thick fashion type of belt or whatever in the middle of the thingy, then it's automatically what? Giving some type of contour. However, at the end of the day, for sure, there's some sisters who may have a belt in their body and it's not that tight. It's already loose, and that's the level of their hijab. All right, so different brothers, they tell me different things. They ask different things. Can I wear this? Is it permissible when we wear this? Can I wear? They're different what? Different levels. Someone who's striving for the top level, no belt. No this, no that, no this color, this thingy, this flower thingy, this little tie-up thingy. But there are plenty of Muslim women that are wearing hijab, and that's their practice, and that's what? That's better for them than wearing other things. You as a merchant, you have to define what's your greatest goal. To make money, or to provide authentic, proper clothes and clothing. Or a little mixture of both. There's nothing wrong with that because you provide a service for people. You understand? It's like if I'm selling tea. I may have some really expensive loose leaf tea, some really high class, high quality stuff. And I may have some basic bags for brothers who drink tea, but they just like the plain tea bag. Someone says, Mufti, I want the best. I want the stuff you're drinking. I want the stuff that's going to make me float and levitate. Set the sack. I need this stuff. Listen, I need the tea that's going to make me memorize Bukhari and I'm off. And do a Bruce Lee back kick and all in one. I say, here you go. This is that tea. And then another brother will say, look, man, I just like tea. Give me something simple. There you go. So if you're asking me for the top stuff, it's right there. I would never drink that rubbish type of tea. Not saying all tea and tea bag is rubbish, but I'm just making an example. If it's a really low quality tea bag, and then there's somebody who may be in the what? In the middle. And I say, you drinking this middle type of tea is better than you drinking this type of soda or such and such, such and such. You got it? But if I want to just have a reputation for having only the good stuff, I say, I can't help you, sister. If you want the belt, I'll buy it. Brother Fulan sells it. Here we only have this. Understood? Yeah. And this is the reason why I'm giving these types of details is because this is a serious issue. And there's a great deal of confusion concerning hijab and concerning dress code and how we dress. I mean, we need to go what? Any further than this room, than this conference, than the Muslims around the world. There's a big problem. And we can only get out of this problem with the proper knowledge. The knowledge of Kitab and Sunnah. And of course, there are going to be issues over which we differ. And we should go back as close as we possibly can. But you have to be realistic in the world in which we live today. You asked me about the definition of a fasiq. Give you an example of reality. When I was in Medina, I had a teacher, one of my best teachers, one of my favorite teachers in the College of Hadith. And we were discussing some issues, and we were talking about shahadat, all right, the rulings of testimonies and witnesses in the Islamic court, etc., etc., etc. So somehow, some way, the issue of shaving the beard came up. And obviously, in according to the hadith, we all know and believe that shaving the beard is absolutely haram. It cannot be done. Can you trim the beard? Can you shape it up? But for sure, shaving it, Gillette, is impermissible. So he said that anyone who practices fisk outwardly cannot be a just witness. He cannot be an equitable witness. He can't testify in an Islamic court. So I raised my hand. I said, yes, Sheikh. I said, most Muslim men today don't have beards. Maybe what, 8 out of 10? Ali, 9 out of 10 maybe? 7 out of 10? Nothing lower than that. I'm going to say 8 out of 10 Muslim men shave their faces. You agree or disagree? 7.5? I say 8. If you ask me. Yeah, 8. Wallahi, a close 9. Yeah, I don't think that's an exaggeration. 8.5. If you just look at the news around, most Muslim men shave their faces. So I asked the Sheikh, I said, if this is the case, that will mean there will be no witnesses. No one would ever have any court case. No one, because 9 out of 10 people don't shave, they shave their faces. And the Sheikh, he said, that's the rule, and that's how it is in the courthouses in Saudi. If he's a fasiq, he's a fasiq. And I accepted that, but I'm like, I don't know about that, Sheikh. If that was the case, the dunya will what? Crumble. So there's so many sisters that don't wear hijab at all. They don't wear the proper hijab, regardless of what makes it improper. Whether it's the wrong color, the wrong style, makeup, perfume, jewelry, high heels, toes out, whatever it may be. So you got to be realistic with the people, and you present the authentic product. This is what the hijab is supposed to be. Sisters aspiring, you're welcome. And if you're back there, down there, you're still a Muslim sister, so on and so forth. Wallahu alam. Khair inshallah. Tafadhal akhi.
Did you get a different answer for the offensive thing, the conclusion?
And in Medina back then?
Or from a different sheikh now? What's your
No, I never asked anybody else about it. I just go with, yeah, you know, reality. Once again, if we were to say any Muslim sister who dresses like this can't come to the conference, how many people wouldn't be? You get the point I'm trying to make? And that's a big mushkila. Wallahu a'lam. Next question says, what is your MW from Nairobi, Kenya? What's the worst advice that you've ever been given? Allahu Akbar. The worst advice that I've ever been given is to stop giving da'wah. Stop teaching. Take a break. Slow down. You're going too fast. You're going too hard. You're going to burn yourself out. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah. Don't go overseas. You're not ready yet. Or, just wait a second. Or save more money. Or et cetera, et cetera. Stuff like that. Horrible advice. Wallahu a'lam. Question is coming from AQ, Ontario, Canada. Should we have hope knowing that we are going to Jannah as Muslims, or be doubtful about it, like having a mix of fear and hope? There's no doubt. There's nothing doubtful. Allah has promised the believers with paradise. And Allah has threatened the disbelievers and the sinners with hell. So as if we have two hearts, or as if we've cut our hearts into two. Hope, fear, fear, hope. Which of the two sides is bigger and stronger? That's a different discussion. Should you have more fear, more hope, less fear, so on and so forth. But you have to have some duality to your heart. You can't just be worshiping Allah with absolute hope. Nor you worship Allah with absolute what? Fear. And there's a third element. Love, hope, and fear. Some scholars say that when you're younger, to غلب جانب الخوف. You should make the aspect of the element of fear stronger when you're younger. And when you're older and weaker, you should have a greater element of hope. And some scholars say is that when a Muslim is very ill and he's about to die, he is not to fear. And if he does fear, then he has bad thoughts of Allah, because it's of no benefit. He can't do anything. When you're about to die, nothing more than hope. Because it's done. It's time to go. It's time for you to check out. And the only thing that you can hope for is hope that Allah will forgive me and have mercy on me because I'm done. You get the point I'm trying to make? Versus when you're strong, walking, talking, you got to be mindful of falling into sin. So there's balance. Wallahu ta'ala alam. Next question is coming from EC, Stuttgart, Germany. What do you think of people who shame other Muslims who buy from brands like Starbucks and say they have nifaq for buying these goods? Me personally, I wouldn't absolutely or shame and condemn a Muslim just like that for buying from Starbucks. If you feel and think that Starbucks or other companies should be boycotted and financially hurt, that's fine. You have your proof and your evidence for that. You have your reason for that. You have your rationale for that. But it doesn't mean that the next Muslim believes and accepts your reason and your rationale. You say potato, I say potato. That's how I see it. So, to play the devil's advocate, a person can say, look, bro, you can boycott Starbucks as much as you want, but you're still buying gas, you're still paying tax, you're still paying Easy Pass, you're still going here, you're buying food from here, you're buying the dates from Ramadan from Israel. So what you going to do, boycott everything? You live in America, the bombs that they're dropping, the dumb bombs, billah, just recklessly dropping bombs on thickly, densely populated areas come from you and your American dream life, whether you realize it or not. So if you don't buy a cup of coffee or a cafe latte or a Trenta, whatever they call it, okay. You think that you think no one else? Do you know what the war chest is? Do you know how much money is placed into that war chest? Do you know how much money they have in that war chest to kill and bomb civilians in Palestine? Billah. So one may say that you boycotting Starbucks is a waste of time. It's a folly. It's a joke. You're not hurting them. And another person may say, another Muslim may say, boycotting Starbucks in America is a waste of time. Boycotting them in Thailand and Malaysia is a different story. And that's why many branches in different countries have shut down. They have shut down. So there's a difference in the time and the place. So it depends. If you feel they should be boycotted, bismillah. Another person says, I don't feel that makes sense, or it's not going to make a difference. You can't shame them and condemn them and call them to be munafiqs. Nah, that's incorrect. Even if you feel that it's obligatory to boycott Starbucks, it doesn't mean that a person is a munafiq. It's obligatory for you to do this. You're not doing it. It's obligatory for me to be doing this. I'm not doing it. That make me a munafiq, have nifaq. Who's the one point in steering nifaq? That's dangerous. That's extremely dangerous. You can say that's wrong, that's incorrect, you're forsaking your brothers, but to tell someone that they have nifaq in them, that's extremely flammable. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. Fadl.
Regarding a design, there's a brother in the local community who makes hoodies, right, with a design on the back, which is similar to a butterfly. I can show it to you if you want. This is what it looks like.
Okay.
Yeah, and so brothers complain in the community that it's too similar of an animal and shouldn't be worn in the salah.
Okay.
Or the colors are rather too vibrant, distract Muslims,
etc.
So, what do you say about that? Is it like Puma, like the?
Understood. Well, the best thing is to avoid it. Period. Avoid it. If you don't have to have an animal or a figure, then don't do it. But for argument's sake, this is my brand, this is my logo, this is my emblem. I like butterflies, so on and so forth. I would say that the surah, the image or the icon or the emblem that for sure is condemned and prohibited and should be shunned and stayed away from is the icon that is of a real living thing, not imaginable, not of something fanciful, but a real living creature of Allah, and that it has a body with a head connected with a neck. And that body and that head has two eyes, it has a face. As far as without the eyes, once again, like the free mixing, you're tuning it down. May still be problematic, but it's still what? You're tuning it down. So I have no eyes on his head, it's less. Their head isn't connected to the body, it's what? Less. It's just a silhouette, it's only 1D, it's not 3D, it's what? Less. You understand the fiqh of that? As far as the colors in the salah, I don't think the colors are that bad, me personally. especially in our modern age in which people wear different types of colors, industrial revolution, so on and so forth. If you ask me my personal opinion on the design of butterfly with those colors for a man to wear, I wouldn't necessarily, endorse that. And there's nothing wrong with butterflies. However, though that shade of blue and pink with the butterfly, I can't wrap my head around it. Me personally. You understand?
Yeah.
Wallahu a'lam. That's just being honest, keeping it 100. But help me explain. Maybe it's a color scheme. I wouldn't wear it though. Yeah, I wouldn't wear it. A big butterfly on my back of my hoodie with neon blue and pink. Let alone to the masjid. I'm not gonna leave this salah wearing that. Wallahu a'lam. Fadl.
Similarly, there are some masajid that recently have huge TVs with slideshows of flyers for the community or big events that are happening with a lot of faces on it. I had some people say that it's for a reason, right? It serves a purpose. That's why the faces are allowed to be shown in the masjid al-musalla.
It shouldn't be in the musalla.
It shouldn't be so.
No. Having a video of the class, of the lecture, of the khutbah is different. But just having a still flyer of faces that is in the direction of the people praying, visible, no. Before the masjid, in the hall, in the hallway, outside, the machine, the screen, labas. But it shouldn't be inside of the masjid. That's dangerous. As far as a live lecture, khutbah, the women can see the brothers on this side, that's a different story. But not the still flyer, the digital flyer, while people are praying, engaged in prayer. No. Wallahu ta'ala alam. Question from Milan says, Mariam Parker, please mention your city and state, your initials. AM from Atlantic City, New Jersey. Is there a hadith that proves the example of a dawah compromise? Barakallah fiqh. There are many examples of how the Prophet ﷺ compromised for a greater good or to avoid a greater harm. Sulh al-Hudaybiyah, which was called a fath, a conquest, a victory. At that time, that was the most beneficial agreement for the Muslims and the Sahaba. Even though some of the Sahaba didn't like it and didn't want it and saw that it was too soft or too favorable for the mushrikeen. That's first and foremost. The Bedouin man who came into the masjid, he urinated in the corner. That's a huge problem. That's disrespectful. That's desecration of the sacred masjid. But the Prophet said, Da'uhu, let him finish. He compromised for a greater good and fearing a greater harm. Right? There are many different issues and things like this. And outside of da'wah, this is one of the major maxims of Islam, qawa'id, of fiqh. And that is taking the lesser of the two harms when you cannot avoid both of them, like boxing. Right now, Zach, you're going to throw 2 punches at me, a jab or a hook. Now, if I can avoid both the jab and the hook, what should I do? But let's say you're too quick, too sharp. One of the two is going to land. Which of the punches am I to take? Which of the 2 punches am I to avoid?
Avoid the jab, take the hook.
No way. Nah. Take the jab for sure and avoid the hook.
Isn't jab the straight punch?
That's the straight punch, but the hook is worse. The hook is a statement.
More momentum.
You get knocked out with that.
You understand? So the moral of the story, you can get knocked out with a jab too. Yeah, I've seen it. At the end of the day, in Islam, there are times in which you may have to make a compromise. But that doesn't mean that you lose your values. And that doesn't mean that you give up and you just allow anything, you don't say anything. No. Like the hijab example. Right now, we have to be like this and like that. But if you ask me, what's the proper hijab? I'm going to say, can't wear this. It's not supposed to be like that. I'm going to stand up for what I believe in. But that doesn't mean that you don't live in a real world. Everyone understand this? So there are different examples of the Prophet ﷺ compromising for a greater good.
Stopping the zalim and
Many things. That's right. Speak with your heart. So on and so forth. Many different times in which you have to be realistic. But that doesn't mean that you just water down your true values. Right? And of course, many issues will be subjective. You may say no, I may say have to. depending on the situation. And we will all stand in front of Allah on the day of judgment. And He will decide who was right and who was wrong. Wallahu ta'ala alam. Next question says, AA from London. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. What to do when after relations with one's wife and you've made ghusl, there's still preseminal fluid dripping for a short while? Tayyib. To keep things simple and easy, once the preseminal fluid is done, the safest, and I didn't say most correct or the strongest, but the safest thing to do is to wash your private part gently, easily, sprinkle a little bit of water into your underwear, and make wudu. You don't have to make a ghusl again. That's all you have to do. That's the safest thing to do. Bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. There are rulings pertaining to semen, ejaculation, pre-ejaculatory fluid, so on and so forth. Wallahu ta'ala alam. Fadl.
Regarding back to the situation in Gaza, regarding the oppressors, is it better to make dua against them or to make dua that Allah guides them?
I would say make dua for Allah to destroy them, to punish them, to take revenge against them. There's nothing wrong if you ask Allah to guide them. And of course, this is subjective. This is subjective. Allah says that إِنَّ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا okay, سَوَاءٌ يعني وَعَظْتَهُمْ أَمْ لَمْ تَكُنْ مِنَ الْوَاعِظِينَ, whether you preach to them, whether you preach to them not. Many verses Allah mentions a seal upon their heart, deafness in their ears, blindness in their eyes. They would never believe, they would never accept, no matter what you say, no matter what you do. And of course, there are other verses that say call, invite, give da'wah, right? It's in the hands of Allah Azza wa Jal. Say a fine word to Pharaoh. قَوْلًا لَيِّنًا لَعَلَّهُ يَتَذَكَّرُ أَوْ يَخْشَى. Musa and Harun were commanded to speak softly to Pharaoh. Maybe Pharaoh's heart will soften. Maybe Pharaoh would be, thoughtful. So there are times which is going to be subjective. Somebody says this guy is killing, slaughtering Muslims. You make dua against him. And another person may say, no, give him a formal invitation to Islam. So I think that there should be a difference between individual and collective group. A specific individual is a different story. A collective group of people slaughtering, killing Muslims, a different story. Understand? That's what I would say. Tafadhal, akhi.
Even with Pharaoh, initially was ordered to speak softly to him so that he changes his mind. But eventually, we read in the Quran that Musa al-Islam mocked him and had challenged.
That's right. There are levels of dawah as well. The initial discussion versus, okay, the soft words aren't working. So it's going to be subjective. Kuffar are to be invited. Many companions accepted Islam who are enemies to Islam. That's a fact. But somebody who's a systematic butcher of Muslims accepting the deen, that's a total different story, right? Khalid radiallahu anhu, he fought the Muslims on the battlefield. Battle. Umar radiallahu anhu was against Islam. How many Muslims did he kill and torture? You get the difference? There's a difference. And of course, guidance is in Allah's hands.
Just a quick follow-up. What about, in this particular situation, would you differentiate between the government who actually has an agenda versus the lay Israeli people who don't really know the history about, they're just kind of following the media and they're just a sheep versus,
Understood.
the dua for them, but punishment against the people who actually know what's going on.
Lay people versus government. I don't want to say things that are too dangerous or get anybody in trouble. But many people use different terms such as innocent, which I never use. I don't like that term. I find it to be extremely vague and misleading. Civilian combatant, that's different. That's okay. But innocent, only Allah knows who's innocent. All right, that's a fact. Second of all, head versus tail. The head of the organization or the group of the government, for sure, versus someone who's a tail. He knows no different. He was born, he was raised, just like we're born and raised. This is how he was taught, that he thinks that he's right. He may be sincere, true. But at the end of the day, this harmless 9-to-5 lay person is living on a farm, that used to belong to a Muslim. Let's keep it real now. This little kid is playing on a swing or a seesaw under which there are ruins of a village that was cleansed and slaughtered. So for argument's sake, somebody has to what?
Go.
And pay. Somebody. Rough, harsh, this and that, but this child is laughing and smiling at the expense of a what? Another child who was blown in pieces, or saw his parents shot in the head. So it's a rough world in which we live. So you intentionally going for this person versus, you get the point I'm trying to make. And I think this is one of the problems of the whole entire conflict, if you wish to call it a conflict. When they're cornered, all of these children you've killed, all of these women that you've killed, all of this indiscriminate bombing, they say, oh, we told them to move to the safe zones, which is nonsense. Oh, we told them this, we dropped leaflets, we this, we that, and then when they're really, really cornered, they'll say collateral damage. Now, if you just keep it real and you be honest for once, look, it is what it is. We will kill 500 Palestinians, civilians, to get one terrorist. Yes, we're going to do that. Rather, it's our only choice. If you openly say that, then it's a much easier discussion to have versus you claiming to be humane and civil and this and that and concerned and precautious. That's dishonest. Yes, for me, for us, these Jews that were killed on this day, we're going to do what we got to do to remove Hamas, to obliterate Hamas, to get rid of Hamas. If we have to kill 50,000 Palestinians, then so be it. You may disagree with that. That's wrong. That's this and that. But at least you're being honest. Included in those people that have to be bombed and moved out of the way will be what? Tons of what? Women and children. But that's not what they're saying. That's not what their actions are clearly saying that. But their tongue, our country, these people, once again, modern civil world and the revolution, people are different. It's the same.
Facade is different.
There you go. That's it. You understand? Wallahu ta'ala. I mean, that's a long discussion. Zach, Big Zach.
I have a question that might be a little bit difficult, but what do you say to the parents of children that you know the parents should know better in regards to how the children behave, speak, and dress? And you see them time and time again, days, months, years go on, and their kids' behavior does not stack up to what you know the parents know about the snap. What can you say to advise them to gently?
That's rough.
Yeah, but it's something.
That's a reality. Now, if this person has knowledge and status, it's even rougher.
Yeah.
And many of the pious predecessors, unfortunately, they would say, "Azhadun nasi fi ilm al-alim ahluhu." They say the people who have the least desire to learn from a scholar are his own family. And some of the Ahlul Hadith, they would say that from the people who would never succeed, ثَلَاثَةٌ لَا تُؤْنِسُ مِنْهُ رُشْدًا. From them is Ibn al-Muhaddith, is the son of a Hadith scholar. The son of a Hadith scholar will be a loser. The family members of a scholar will be the furthest from benefiting and learning from this scholar. That's very scary and that's very sad. That's not Quran, that's not a Hadith, it's a statement. But the moral of the story is that sometimes you find people with such Islamic excellence, and for one reason or another, no matter how paradoxical it may be, their kids, their wives, etc., are the worst and have the worst behavior, the worst hijab, etc., etc. Something's wrong. Whether there's something wrong with the father and the mother teaching da'wah to the family, or whether it's something that's hidden from the people. I put on a show of righteousness, but behind closed doors, I'm totally different. So that's a big problem. What I would do, adinu nasiha, people that want to get offended or they're going to feel disrespected, but you got a job to do. You got to advise them with respect and closed doors. Jazakallah khairan, Sheikh, for everything you've done, for what you do. Jazakallah khairan. The other day I was in the masjid. Your son, he did this. He put on his phone, he has some crazy stuff on his phone, I just think you should, and that's it. He accepts it, he gets mad. Who are you to tell me about my family? Mind your business. Who are you? Get out my face. Jazakallah khairan. You did your job. You gave your nasiha. That's it. Someone has to say something. Maybe he's forgetful. Maybe no one is saying anything to him because he's such a big sheikh. And everybody is, offering him tea and fruit and lamb and sheikh, tafaddal. Maybe. So you do your Islamic obligation in the proper way. He takes it well. He gets mad at you. He looks at you funny. He don't want to talk to you. Alhamdulillah, I did my job. And that's it. And of course, that's a long discussion. And that's scary for all of us. Tafaddal.
One of the conditions of tawbah is to have remorse. If a person stops committing a sin but finds it difficult to have remorse in their heart, is their tawbah deficient?
If they don't have remorse?
Yes. But they stop committing it knowing that.
Understood. They have to have remorse. You must be remorseful. And if you have no remorse, then you don't have any remorse. If I disrespected you, I got into a fight with you, I raised my voice at you, I did this, da 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 da, and then somebody broke it up, chill, relax, blah 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 blah, and I have no remorse. In most cases, I'll do it again. And the only reason why I'm not doing it is because someone stopped. Once again, overseas, right? You don't have any remorse for killing and bombing and blowing all. You don't have no remorse. You'll do it again. Unless you actually feel bad. What I did was wrong, it was messed up, and it was disrespectful to Allah. I angered Allah through my actions. That's an absolute must. And obviously, if the condition is missing, then the act of worship is invalid. Wallahu a'lam. Faddal.
So what happens if two people in the masjid get into a conflict for whatever reason? One person stops giving salam to another brother, right? And the other brother has no idea why, what happened, and he tries to continue giving salam and try to get back together as brothers and friends, but the other person refuses for one reason or another. Should a person continue trying to be
clear? Somebody has to be the arbitrator, and someone has to remind their brother who refuses to give him salams is that it's unlawful to boycott a Muslim for more than 3 days for personal reasons. As far as Islamic reasons, that's a different story, such as the drunkard. You keep drinking alcohol in public, getting drunk, we're not going to speak to you. But me and you got into a fight. We got into a beef. I'm a little sore. You're a little upset. 3 days. I want to talk to you, make peace with you. I have to make peace with you. So somebody should come in and someone should arbitrate. Look, what's the beef? What's the issue? He apologized. This is right. This is wrong. You can't just keep ignoring your Muslim brother. That's unlawful. That's impermissible.
Well, what if he's still caught like
Then
this?
that's his own. It's his own foolishness. That's his own sins. After he's been advised. Wallahu a'lam. Faddal.
I was gonna say, to add to the point to the brother that mentioned the thing about the Toba, it's much more likely, I feel like, that the person feels remorse but still does it again, because that's the point of Toba. You can keep making it over and over. There's somebody not doing it again but not feeling remorse. I feel like if you, like Mufti mentioned, if you didn't feel remorse, what's stopping you from doing it again? You just keep doing it again.
Yeah, it's
the two different scenarios, one person not doing it again but not feeling remorseful is much less likely, I feel like, than a person that feels remorse but still doesn't.
no question. And the quality of the Toba, even if you fall again into the sin, let alone the fact that the power of remorse. I'm not going to drink alcohol right now, even though I want to, and I'm addicted, and it tastes good, etc., because I know how bad I'm going to feel afterwards. The premeditated remorse. I want to feel like trash, making this sin again and relapsing. And this is why Allah Azza wa Jalla tells us about the hereafter. And كَذَلِكَ يُرِيهِمُ اللَّهُ أَعْمَالَهُم. Allah shows them their deeds as hasarat. They're going to have remorse when it's no what? It's of no benefit. So therefore, while you're living now, prevent yourself from falling into that situation. Damn. That's what you're going to say. When you're late for the train, when you miss your flight, I knew I should, So no matter how frustrated and hot you feel, you've missed that flight. And you were telling yourself, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up, right? Don't do this, get ready, pack your bags. So the next time you have to travel, what are you going to do? You're going to make sure that you're ready. You're going to make sure you're at the airport on time because you know how bad you're going to feel what? After. You're going to feel remorseful and you're going to kill yourself. And if you don't have that remorse, then you just, like you said, you lost. Remorse is a very powerful emotion. It's extremely useful in your life. Learning how to harvest your remorse. We lost in the Super Bowl. We can't make that mistake again. Because how bad it felt. How dumb we felt. We self-destructed. We messed up. We had the game in our hands. We blew it. We threw it away. You can't go back. The game is done. The L is there. Next season, next game, what is the quarterback or the coach, what is he going to do? He's going to use that remorse to make sure. You get the point I'm trying to make? And if you don't feel bad about losing, you're going to what? You're going to play the same way again. Wallahu alam. Fadl akhi.
If there's a situation in a family where one family member commits a terrible crime against another family member, for example, one brother, he commits adultery with his sister-in-law, with his brother's wife, or sexual abuse happens, or something along those lines. How should a family react to that situation like that? Do they cut off the people who've done it? Like it's an unforgivable situation. Maybe your own two children, something's happened.
Clear. It can't be repaired. It can't be fixed. The damage is done. That's rough. May Allah help us all and protect us all. Remove yourself from the situation. Think about the victim. How is it fair for a child to be victimized, no matter who victimized them, and then just get off scotch-free and then just walk away with a slap on the wrist? Nah, that's not okay. That's not cool. That's going to send the child that was sexually abused or victimized further away. I was raped. I was molested by uncle or auntie or this one or that one. That messed me up enough mentally, physically. And on top of that, you, Abby, Umi, you didn't what? You didn't even do nothing. You barely believed me. You blamed me. It was your fault. Da, 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 instead of establishing the justice. So therefore, you know what? Not only am I going to turn to a homosexual, but that person leave Islam, start doing this, start smoking this, start shooting this, and they go further and further and further down that dark path because of the hammer blows that they received. So it's a big problem. Secondly, is the future. If we don't take a vigilant stance now, in most cases it will happen again. And most people who make these types of crimes and offenses, it's not the first time. It isn't the first time that they've done it. It's the first time that they got caught. And most people who physically or sexually abuse people, they have a long list of offenses that they did that led them up to final boldness or sloppiness, and they got caught. So therefore, you have to take a harsh stance. Mother, father, brother, we're not going to keep quiet. We're not going to hush hush. We're going to blow the whistle. We're going to take a stance against it because that could be another child's life destroyed. So therefore, the stance must be taken, whatever that stance may be, of repudiating them, criticizing them, condemning them, warning from them, shaming them, taking legal action, whatever is needed, and not shh, hush hush, keep it in the family. No, there's no hush hush when it comes to destroying a person's life. And most people who are sexual deviants, they were abused when they were younger. They were violated. And most of them were violated by someone that they trusted. That's the double blow. Not only was I sexually molested, but it was the coach that I used to look up to. It was the uncle, it was my dad that I thought was the best man in the world, and he sexually molested me. He sexually violated me. So that totally messes up everything. So that's dangerous. And you know, there has to be blood. There's no afu. There has to be blood. There has to be retribution in that situation. You have to take action against that. I'm sorry. Oh no, it's going to mess up the family. I'm sorry. Hey, you should have thought about that before you did that to that child. Wallahu alam.
What if a less dramatic situation, like the first example, where one of your children, he stole his brother's wife, and they had an affair, they committed adultery, and then maybe she divorced him and married the brother, and now they're still both in the family. Do you cut one off? Do you interact with both?
That's bad as well. That's bad as well. But however, they made zina, if they made toba, it's in the past, khalas. However, you made zina and took the wife from this one. I mean, that's a big problem. So you have to learn how to deal with them with a distance. Their family, they made Toba, they got married for argument's sake. You know, it is what it is. But let's be real. Many people, they say this person stole this man's wife, so on and so forth. Can a man steal another man's wife? Is that possible? Can I take your wife from you? No matter how handsome, how smooth talking, how this, how much of a Don Juan I may be, lady killer, spellbinding, I got that game, yeah, that gift, what? Right? No matter how much I am or whatever I am, can I take the woman that truly belongs to you?
She's not that heavy, you could kind of like.
That's a different story. Kidnapping a wife. That's cultural. But can I seduce and take this woman from you that's really connected to you? Unless there was already what?
Potentially should.
So, Allah Mustaan. May Allah help us all. Khair, inshallah. Take the last few questions from online before we stop. Question is coming from Muhammad MH Toronto. Assalamu alaikum Mufti. Can you pray witr after Isha Sunnah and pray night prayer when you wake up at night, or witr has to be the last prayer? Jazakallah khairan. Witr should be the crown jewel of your prayer. It should be the last part of your prayer. It should be the completion of your prayer. Whether you're going to pray and then sleep, whether you're going to pray and then go to sleep, so on and so forth. Witr should be the last thing. If you plan to get up and pray additional prayers, so on and so forth, delay the witr. Wallahu ta'ala alam. UN from California. Next question. KT, Indianapolis, Indiana. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I had a dream that I was wearing white and I prayed Jumu'ah prayer in a grocery store, meaning I caught the prayer. Sounds like a good dream to me. Sounds like. May Allah make it a good dream. Ameen. Question is coming from, Assalamu alaikum, MP from Detroit, Michigan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. What is a good timeline in terms of months of speaking to a potential partner for marriage? Every situation is different. Every person differs. Every situation varies. However, you can never go wrong with 3. 3 is a blessed number. 3 is a sunnah number. So that could be 3 weeks. That could be 3 months. 3 years, I would say no. Getting to know someone. You make your engagements, you're saving up money, you're graduating from school, blah, 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 blah. Or it's an arranged marriage, children. That's a different story. 3 years in the making. But 3 years of courting, heck no. Heck no. 3 years of courting is going to lead to disaster. You're going to catch feelings for each other. You're going to be texting, the LOLs, the emojis, the pictures, the FaceTimes, the this, the that, the 12 a.m. you text, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m., right? What you doing? What are you doing? And the next thing you know, you're going to crash. Because that's a long time being invested in someone that you can't be with. So it has to be a balance. It can't be reckless haste, nor can it be unnecessary hesitation. So if you needed a number from me for argument's sake, 3 months, 6 months. But it could be shorter than that, depending on the situation, right? It's like a case, a detective. This case took me 3 years. This case took me 3 days. This case took me 3 hours, depending on the situation. But it should be, I would say, at least keep it at a what? 3. 3 hours, 3 days, 3 minutes. But it should be a what? If you got it like that, Zach, mashallah. It should be a what? A bucket, at least what? At least 3. That's the moral of the story. Wallahu ta'ala alam. Wa subhanakallahumma bihamdika. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Jazakumullahu khairan. Thanks a lot for the participation. May Allah bless each and every one of you.